Yeah, I don't know about you guys, right? But every time we play that music, I get a hype, right?
You took the words right out of my mouth. I was about to say verbatim the same exact thing.
Straight hype, right? You got a steel pan playing in the background, get a wicked beat. No, you can't get better than that. That gets me hype. I'm be ready for when after I come. Even if I'm not in a good mood, after playing that intro, I'd be hype. I'd be ready to go.
Yeah.
Let's go. Showtime.
Thank you guys for joining us tonight on the Breathe Easy podcast. I am your co-host, Ralph Plaskett. I am joined by my other co-hosts, Chris and Cal. Say, Chris, hey, hi.
Good evening, everyone. Thanks for joining us.
Good evening, everyone. Okay, Ralph, you want to let me jump in? So, yeah, Calvin Penny here, and I'm excited for the show tonight.
We also have a special guest tonight, but I don't dare, steal the thunder away from his introduction, right? So allow me to do a little bit more talking, and then we're going to get into introducing who we have on the call tonight. You see him, but we're not going to introduce him just yet, right? So here at the Breathe Easy podcast, we believe that by facilitating culturally sensitive conversations, that we can destigmatize mental health. Right? Especially amongst us men, right? You see 4 men here on this podcast. Often we don't talk about things that trouble us. And that means they continue to trouble us. We want to change all of that because we believe by changing that narrative that we can reduce suicide rates, we can keep families together, and we can certainly create a psychological safety in our communities. Look, if this is your first time here on this podcast, we thank you. We welcome you for joining us tonight. If you're returning with us again for episode number 9, this is 9 that we got. I hold up 5, but it was actually 9 that we got here. Look, thanks for rolling with us and all of the information that we continue to give. If you guys remember Martin, brother man from the 5th floor.
Yeah,
y'all remember that? Every time I do something like that, that comes to mind for me, right? Hey guys, if you guys are on Facebook, that means that you somehow found our page. Thank you. Go ahead and follow our page, share it, let all your friends know, because that helps our mission of destigmatizing mental health. If you are on YouTube, go ahead and subscribe, or as my son would say, subscribe. Go ahead and subscribe to the page, hit the notification bell, and like this video. Again, this helps our mission in destigmatizing mental health. If you're on Instagram, or rather should go to Instagram, follow our page, Breathe Easy Media. And look, that's where we do most of our conversation. This is where we interact with most of our folks when we're outside of these lives. So definitely hit up our Instagram page and follow along. Look, shout out to you guys on the live. Shout out to Miss Judy. Miss Judy doesn't make the live, but I hear that Miss Judy watches every single one of our episodes and she's really engaged, right? So I want to say shout out to Miss Judy. Thanks for following along. Oh man, that's always the loveliest part of the show for me, right? Obviously, I'm biased. I'm talking about it. But what we have next is, before we get into it, I know y'all itching to find out who this is that we have here on the call. I know you guys are itching to hear this conversation that we're going to have, but we got to take care of some housekeeping business before that. So what we got to do now is we're going to roll into our disclaimer. Cal, can you take us through?
Sure. So for the show, this content is not intended to be substitute for professional advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Always seek the advice of your mental health professional or other qualified health provider with any questions you may have regarding your condition. Never disregard professional advice or delay in seeking it because of something you have read or heard from our podcast. If you're in crisis or think you may have an emergency, call your doctor or 911 immediately. If you're having suicidal thoughts, call 1-800-273-TALK to talk to a skilled, trained counselor at a crisis center in your area at any time. If you are located outside the United States, call your local emergency line immediately. Breathe Easy Media is not a direct service organization. Breathe Easy Media does not recommend or endorse any clinicians, counselors, psychiatrists, social workers, physicians, products, procedures, opinions, or other information that may be mentioned on our podcast. Reliance on any information provided by Breathe Easy Media hosts, Breathe Easy Media guests, or other appearing on Breathe Easy Media platform is solely at your own risk. Amen.
Awesome.
Amen. Like that was a prayer. I feel like I gotta do the cross now. You know what I mean?
Moment of silence. All right.
So let's get into the introduction for our esteemed guest. First of all, thank you for joining us this evening. This gentleman is originally from the Bronx, New York, and has over 20 years in the police department. Throughout his career, he's worked with patrol, narcotics, gang units, and is ultimately made it to the current position of Detective Sergeant. Sgt Lamont Davis, thanks for joining us this evening.
Thank you for having me.
I feel like we should have like one of those sound bars with a hand clap. Yes, sir.
I feel
Yes,
like
sir.
the ring announcer weighing in at 256 pounds, making his way to the stage.
You know what I mean? We appreciate you joining us tonight, Sergeant Davis. Hey, full disclosure, Sergeant Davis is my brother-in-law. So, in case anybody out there is wondering, like, who's this cat? Why is he talking to him like that? He's my brother-in-law, right? So much love here.
Always, always.
So let's get into it. Who want to get into the first question?
So I guess I'll start. So tell us, what is it that drew you into going down this career path? Was it kind of the old cliche of, playing cops and robbers when you were a kid, and it's just, that path that you took? Or what is it that got you involved with the police department?
So honestly, it wasn't anything I intended to do. I didn't grow up wanting to be a police officer. I grew up in the South Bronx. I had no love for police. I was just at that stage in my life. I was newly married, had a child, and needed a career. And I just applied, and it ended up being my passion. I love policing. I love being a police officer. I love everything that comes with it, the good days and the bad days.
It's awesome.
I mean, that's pretty cool, right? I mean, you had a need, right? You needed to be able to, feed your family, take care of your family. You applied and you fell into, a career that you love, right? That. I think that's a blessing in and of itself. I mean, so many people are striving out there to kind of find, what is their purpose? What are they eager to, do with their life? And, by God's grace, you were able to fall right into something that you're so passionate about.
Definitely.
So, you mentioned good days and bad days, right?
Mm-hmm.
And, I want to kind of, inquire around the mind of a police officer, especially, you take a step back. We often, as civilians, don't necessarily get a lens into some of the truth in policing, right?
Mm-hmm.
We see what the news gives us. We certainly see all of the cop shows and stuff like that, and we have this perspective, right, that's fed by some media. But many people may not have an understanding of the day in the life of a police officer. Certainly, the one with your expertise and your career, gang units, narcotics, and then as a detective now. I'm wondering, how stressful of a job, right? I have a perception, but I'm wondering how stressful a job it is to be a police officer.
So I'm gonna dispel the TV police persona. It's not real. What you see on the cop shows, it's not real. Um, your day doesn't go like that. That's just pure entertainment. Cases don't get closed in 48 hours, and you don't yell at the captain and tell him that you're not going to do something and go out and play rogue police, and it doesn't. Life doesn't work like that. Um, you get up in the morning, you do the same things that everybody else does. You get the kids ready for school, you pack the lunches, and you go to work, and you put this uniform on, and you become a different person. You become a person who is responsible not only for yourself, but for every citizen that you come in contact with, whether they're good guys or bad guys. You become, you're two different people, and you have to be able to maneuver in those worlds. And I say you can grow up in a bad neighborhood and never realize that it's a bad neighborhood because you're in it. But when you police that neighborhood, you know everybody's business, right? You don't call me to your house for Thanksgiving dinner. You don't call me for the birthday party. You don't call me to celebrate something good. You call me when you can't handle the problem anymore, when things are at their worst. So I see people at their worst, and I have to be at my best constantly to provide the service that they need. And that becomes stressful sometimes because I have my stresses, right? I have, me and my wife were arguing last night, or the kids got in trouble at school, or just the bills piled up, or whatever it is that everyone goes through. I have to be able to put that in a box and still provide the service, and a quality service and a professional service to people who are going through whatever they're going through. So you have to be able to maneuver in those worlds, and it becomes stressful. And I think a lot of people forget that at the end of the day, I'm still a dad, I'm still a husband, I'm still a son, I'm still a grandfather, and there's still things that go on in my life, the car notes due, the mortgages due, all the rest of that stuff that comes through, the tuitions are due, and dad, I want this, and son, I want that, and you have to play those roles, but you have to be able to take your problems, put them away, and deal with everybody else's without bringing your problems into that situation, and that becomes difficult sometimes.
And
so along those lines, right?
Okay.
The day, how do you unwind? Because I could easily imagine a situation where you're bringing all the stresses of your day home. And, I'm assuming it's not just as easy as taking off the uniform and all those stresses go away. So what do you do to unwind?
So me personally, so that takes a while from a new officer being given all this power and responsibility, to be able to turn that off. That's a learned process, right? So it's not going to happen. And if you look at officers who get in trouble, it's in that 1 to 5 years, because they're still in that I'm a superhero mode, right? But you have to learn the things that make you happy. You have to learn how to do the things that take you away from all the nonsense that you have to deal with constantly. So for myself, I'm an avid golfer. I love to travel and play golf. So if you ask my wife, I think she thinks I'm married to golf. Well, I'll spend all day on the golf course, reading golf, playing golf, watching golf. That becomes my outlet. But that was something that didn't happen early in my career. I had to learn that, and I went through the arguments at home because I brought the problems from work home, and I went through all that stuff. But you have to learn that it's not personal. It's not like that stuff that's there is temporary. You deal with it there, and then you put it away, and you come home and you deal with everything else that you have to deal with. But you have to find an outlet whatever you like to do to leave that stress at work. And it's not easy. And believe me, it took, I have 22 years on, and it took about 15 years to learn how to leave that alone. You know?
Yeah, and to add, right, you bring up a good point, is that as a civilian, we look at police officers and we're like, okay, well, they're superheroes. Like, we expect them to be, we as a society, we have such a high expectations for for police officers, right? So when we look at, like, especially what happened in the news and the media, you just expect them to be so much, it's almost like you said, we expect them to be superhuman, right? But at the same time, what kind of opens up to me is like, well, you may look at a police officer, but at the same time, that's a father, that's a brother, that's a friend. So it's almost like so many different roles you have to play. And as a civilian, sometimes, like, your role, you go to work, you come back, you could afford to be the same person, probably not. But I feel, just listening to you right now, is like, as a police officer, to me, I'm thinking, well, how do I prepare my mind? How to prepare myself mentally? Kind of like for basketball or basketball player, they got to get in mind, they got to prepare their mind, get itself in the zone. Is there some, like, I mean, it's for me, for getting into, like, my work day, like, I meditate to try and get into the zone or something, or probably before I have a call, or before I have, like, I listen to some type of music to get me, like, amped. I mean, how do you prepare yourself mentally to take on that role every day?
So you just for myself,
Yeah.
I driving to work, I don't talk on the phone. I listen to music. I get my mind right. I go through the day that I want to have. I picture the day that I want to have. It doesn't always work out like that, but I just take those moments that as I'm getting ready to go to work, to prepare myself mentally for whatever the day is going to throw at me. My position that I have now is a little bit different. So I'm a detective sergeant, and I run a detective squad, and we handle non-fatal shootings. So I'm not on the street. I'm not chasing down people. I'm not doing that. I'm investigating non-fatal shootings and aggravated assaults and things of that nature. So my mindset's a little bit different now. But to touch on what you were saying about being human, still, the nature of the job requires you to sometimes suppress your own emotions about things, right? Because I'm on a scene, and I can't let what's happened get the best of me. So it's an elite group of people that are able to do that, right? In that world, seeing the stuff that you see, to be able to say, okay, I can't take it that far. It's not, this is what it is. This is in this box. It is what it is. I need to deal with what it is. And if you're going to be a police officer, that's the thing that you have to understand, that it's not personal, right? You see me, you don't see me, you don't know me, you see the uniform. If you're yelling, you're not yelling at me, you're yelling at the uniform. So it's not personal. So you can't make it personal, because when you make it personal, you make mistakes, right? And you do stupid stuff, and you get jammed up, and bad things happen. So you have to be able to have a thick skin and understand that sometimes, it's not me, it's what the person is going through, and deal with that at that moment, and then learn how to let that go and deal with the next issue, and then the next one that comes up, and the next one, and then at the end of the day, you put that in a box, you close the locker, and you go home.
It's funny because, like, real quick, it's funny because, like, back then, growing up, when I would be, one of the first jobs I started off was in retail, and then you'd have a customer that come in, and they'd be like, they'd be so upset, and they'll have, like, a probably one of the worst days or whatever, and you're trying to help them, but you have to still keep it professional to deal with them, right? Because, like, even if they have that bad day, the next person that comes up, maybe, they come in with a whole different, fresh attitude. They don't know what you've been through. So you have to maintain like a positive attitude. So kind of like what I hear you saying, like, it's interesting because it's like, I'm trying to find ways how I could apply that mindset to stuff that I do in my world, right? Is where, sometimes you just have to like take yourself and look out the equation and just allow people to have their own thing. Don't take it personal, right?
It's
Because if
never
you take it
personal.
personal, then you could take that stuff with you. And then somebody that whole event could be living in your mind, rent free.
Yeah.
You don't want to, and they're going to affect you. The easiest way to not let it affect you is, try and just not take it like personal, but try and look at it objectively. That's
Yes.
kind of what I'm getting out of it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I wonder if you could, if you're willing to share an example where you kind of had to, take yourself, your emotions out of the situation, the environment that you brought your policing self to, and and how you dealt with that, right? I wonder if you could share an example of that.
So yeah, so early in my career, we were one particular incident where we had a juvenile who was shot and killed. Good kid, knew him from the neighborhood, and when we got the suspect in the box and we were talking to him, he was so nonchalant about it because he actually meant to kill his brother and ended up killing the wrong brother. And it was extremely frustrating to hear him describe it like it didn't mean anything to him when you got to kind of bite your tongue and you got to swallow and you have to let him get out the stuff he needs to get out. So basically, help me send you to prison. That's what I'm doing at that part, right? At that point, help me send you. So tell me these things that you need to tell me to make you feel like you did something spectacular when what you did was horrible. And I know what you did was horrible, but I can't let those emotions get the best of me in that box because then you win. And then this kid and his family loses and it's not worth it. So you have to sometimes, and I've never worked sex offense, but I've talked to detectives who have, and sitting in a room with a pedophile and having to listen to him tell this story, and it's in the back of your head, you just want to punch him in the face, right? Any decent person would want to do that at that point, but you have to let them get that out. I need this to come out because this is what's going to send you to prison. So being able to put those emotions in the back of your mind and get what you need from that person and then processing that later on when you leave, right? So that becomes a situation where it's I need to step away for a little bit. I need to get some fresh air. I need to walk out because we're all human, right? And to deal with somebody who has a capability of hurting people and have no remorse about it gets kind of frustrating.
I'm really curious to hear your take on the mental state of these people. What is it that gets them to this place? Is it their environment? Is it over a number of years? And I know each situation is unique, but if you could, to get to a point where you could become a pedophile or take somebody's life with no remorse, I mean, you have to have a hardened soul at that point. And I'm like, how did you get to this place where you just don't even care?
Well, Chris, to your point, it almost sounds kind of like to the different roles, right? Is that you're a police officer, you're a protector, and then you're a therapist in some ways, because it's like you have to listen to this stuff. Not saying like you have to counsel these people, but it's like you listen to this stuff, and some of these people, I bet like a majority of these people, they're there because they have mental health issues.
So I am a police officer. I am a pastor. I am a counselor. I am a social worker. I am I'm a punching bag. I'm a little bit of everything for everyone, depending on the situation, right? And I understand that going in, right? That's something that if you're gonna do this job, you have to understand it's not just chasing down bad guys every day, right? Sometimes you're gonna sit in a room and people are gonna unload their biggest problems on you, right? And you know, I think that one of the things that touched my heart the most, one day I was a training officer and we get a call to a supermarket for a shoplifter, and it was a lady in there and she was shoplifting food, right? So, we're talking to the security guard and she's like, listen, I didn't have any money to feed my kids. So I was like, okay, I paid for it, right? Let her take it out, didn't charge her. I was like, go home and feed your kids. Whether she did or didn't, I don't know. But at that moment, I wasn't the police officer. I was the concerned man looking out for a woman who needed help at that point. What she did with it, I can't tell you. But at that moment, that's what I felt like, So my job is not, like I said, it's not just chasing down the bad guys. I am everything to everyone that they need at that moment, good, bad, or indifferent. And you have to understand that doing this job, it's not one dimensional. You're gonna be a million things to a million people in one day. From call to call, it's gonna require you to be somebody different.
And I wish I would hear more stories like this, because there's a huge lack of trust when it comes to police officers, right? Especially people with mental health illness. There's even a lower lack of trust. So
Yes.
by doing this, it also, it shows, it kind of brings down the guard for people, I assume, so you could start building the trust in the community, so we could start helping protect and keep the community safer.
So 99.9% of the police officers that you ever encounter want to do the job and do it correctly and do it well. It's just unfortunate when we have those bad apples where things happen and it gets the overplay and it gets pushed to the forefront, and it's easy to assume that everyone is like that in any profession, right? So those stories of officers who buy Christmas gifts or who take care of families, or who stop to play football in the middle of the street with some kids while they're working, or things like that doesn't get played. But that happens 99.9% of the time. When a little kid wants to come up and just stand there and talk to you because you're the police officer on the corner, that the media doesn't play that. They play the officer who stole something, who did something, and that percentage is really small. And those guys are not that. I've never met an officer who woke up in the morning and said, I want to shoot somebody today. I've never met that guy.
Right.
I've never met him. If I did, I'd get him fired. You know what I'm saying? So 99% of the men and women who do this job are brave, are compassionate, are caring, are giving, of not only just their time, but their money, their emotions, and that doesn't get any play at all. Because if it wasn't, this world would be messed up, right? If 99% of the police were as bad as that 1%, we couldn't walk outside. So the majority of the police that you'll ever encounter, all they want to do is do their job and go home. That's it. Do their job and go home. And what we fail to realize, you control your interactions with the police, right? If you're receptive to what they're telling you to do, and I'm not telling you to fight and argue or push back, but if you don't like how you're being talked to, if you don't like how you're treated, when the stop is done, when everything is done, get all the information and go ahead and make a complaint. And you have that right to do that. But in the middle of that situation, you have to understand that they don't know you. They don't know, that you might be a criminal. You might have a gun in the car. You might be a violent person, but they don't know you. But if you do anything that makes them feel uncomfortable or puts the hairs on the back of the neck, then you're dealing with a different situation. But you control that, especially as black men, you control that car stop. Right? There's nothing wrong with complying. There's nothing wrong with understanding what's being asked of you at that moment. But when you try to fight it at that moment, you're gonna lose. And not only are you gonna lose that situation, you could lose your life, and it's not worth it, right? And if you don't like how you're being treated, like I said, by all means, make all the complaints you want when you're done. And if you don't feel like it's going anywhere, continue up the ladder. But we can't, as a society, we can't buck the system and do what we want to do because we want to do it and think that's okay at that moment and not deal with the repercussions that come with it, right? And that's in anything that we do. But that doesn't mean that you have to go through life fearing police, fearing being stopped, fearing, any encounter that you have with them. No, you control that. As a citizen, you control that. And that's what a lot of people don't really understand.
So understood, right? And I agree with you, right? But you're also speaking from a place of 22 years of experience, right?
Mm-hmm.
As a police officer. We had a question earlier on from in the comments. It says, do you have any type of sessions with the younger officers to kind of, give them that lift, that education, that experience, that they, so that they don't have to gain it over 20 years. What kind of engagements that the younger officers have so that your perspective as a 20-year veteran is embodied in the younger officers, and we don't have situations where and I'm not saying this happens, but we have situations where younger officers might get embodied with the power and they feel that they can do things that they may not have done without the badge.
Yes. So speaking for myself, I make it a point to engage every young officer that I come across. So when we have new officers that come to my district, I make it a point to address them, right? About what's to be expected, and advise them that my door is always open, and they can come ask me any questions they want. And I also, when I'm on the scene of a situation, if I see something that doesn't quite look right, sound right, or play off right, I'll pull an officer up and have a conversation with them. And because of where I sit, it's usually well receptive, and they understand. And I'm not coming at them from a supervisory standpoint. I'm not coming at them as just a senior officer. I'm coming at them as somebody who's been where you're at. And I need you to understand that this is not going to work out well for you if you continue down this route. So yes, I do that. But I think that's something that should be taught during the academy, and definitely during their field training, as they come on and go through these different situations, because every officer isn't going to take the time to learn the community that they police. Right? I think it's very important that you know your audience. So we provide a service, right? We provide a service to a community. And I think it's important that you understand why your community is the way it is that you police, right? You might not be from that community, but you can learn, the verbiage of that community. You can learn why things are the way they are in certain communities. I think it's very important that officers do that. I think that should start definitely in the academy, where you're taught to learn these areas. You're taught to learn, especially if you're coming from a different city into another community to police, or if you're coming from a rural area into an urban city to police. You should understand the community that you're policing in.
Yeah, one would think that's common sense, right? That if I'm going to be policing, providing a service to a community, I should understand it intimately, right? So that I can best serve that community, right? Like Cal is a sales rep, right? So he needs to understand his region in order to be
Mhm.
able to best serve his region. Don't let me speak for you,
Exactly.
Cal. But he needs to be able to best serve his region. So it's interesting. Should there be police officers who are put into regions and don't do the work to understand that neighborhood, the demographics, the experience of the individuals, why they may be going through whatever they're going through, more than just the surface level, surface level
Well, Ralph,
knowledge.
to your point, I assume you'd have to like know your territory, right? You'd have to know like you'd have to get like some background or have a
Mhm.
like a classroom session where you go through the territory, you tell them about like certain parts of the neighborhood, right?
Yeah,
Before
well,
they,
you
So
have
does that
that
happen?
you have that in field training, but
yeah.
the field training is not as in depth as taking it upon yourself to learn, because your field training officer is only going to be with you but for so long, right? And they're going to teach you, you know, the district that you're in. They're going to teach you how to write your reports. They're going to teach you the nuances of policing that you're not going to learn in the academy. In the academy, you're going to get the foundation of policing. You're going to learn the laws and what you can and can't do. Your training officer is going to have you apply what you've learned in the academy onto the street. It's incumbent upon you to develop the type of officer that you're going to be, right? So if you're going to be, if you just want to take reports and ride around for 8 hours and that's what you're going to do, then that's what you're going to do. But if you want to be the type of officer that can affect change in the community that you're working in, then you're going to have to take it upon yourself to learn the community that you're working in, learn the people, learn the terminology, understand, why things are the way they are in your community that you police. We provide the service, but it can't be laid just on the department alone for you to learn these things, because like I said, the academy is going to give you the foundation, but now you have to build on that. And if you're not willing to build on that, if you just want to be that type C police officer, then this isn't the job for you. And that's and unfortunately, you know when you look at these incidents throughout the country, those are those type C police officers who don't take the time to learn the people that they're policing. Because you live in a bad neighborhood, because you committed a crime, doesn't always make you a bad person. Every situation has to stand on its own merit, and you have to be able to police that situation for what it is at that point. Like I always say, you can't blanket police, right? Fair isn't always equal, so you can't have one style of policing and that goes across the board for everybody, because everybody's different. I can go to a rich I'll go to a hood, right? And I can tell a kid on the corner, hey shorty, come on, you got to roll, right? He understands that. I met him at his level. I can't go to the rich section and tell the kids in the corner, shorty, you got to roll. I got to speak to him a little bit differently. Young man, you can't be here. You have to go, right? So I didn't disrespect the kid in the hood by saying shorty. I met him at his level and I spoke to him at a level that he understood. Me calling him young man or sir, for him that's disrespect, right? Because he doesn't understand that. I try to take him to my level. No, I got to meet you at your level so that you understand and we can have this dialogue. So the same, but I'm treating you the same across the board. But you can't blanket police. I can't say everybody gets talked to this way. No, because the way we might speak in the black community isn't disrespectful for how we speak to each other, as opposed to how they may speak in the white community. But you have to understand that you just can't say this is it and this is the only way we're going to do it, because then you're leaving people out and you're not including everybody in to this realm of policing, right? So I speak to you in the way that you understand. I meet you at your level. Now we have a dialogue. Now we can chat about whatever we need to chat about, and you understand where I'm coming from, I understand where you're coming from, and we're good. But I can't try to take you to my level without first meeting you at yours, and then let's try to build this up. And that's really important to me, and I preach that a lot to my detectives and to young officers. You got to meet the people that you serve at their level. and then bring them up to yours. I can't walk into a situation like a domestic situation and everybody's yelling. I can't walk in there and start yelling on top of everybody, right? Just because I'm the police, you're gonna shut up and gonna listen to me. I can't do that. I got to meet somebody in that room at their level. Hey, can I talk to you? Now we're talking. Now people are starting to quiet down because they want to hear what I have to say. Now we're talking. Now we have a dialogue. Now we can get to the bottom of what's going on. You can't come in high and then go low. You've got to come in low, and if you need to build up, you can build up. But that's the young beat my chest police officer. I want to come in the door and you're gonna listen to me because I'm a police. It doesn't work like that, and that's something that you learn over time. But that's something that, as veteran officers, we have to teach these younger officers come in, and that you can catch more flies with honey than you can with vinegar. You know. And that's just my philosophy. It has nothing. I mean, somebody else can say something different and think, but it's worked for me for 22 years, and I'm okay.
Well, and I think you mentioned something that really caught my attention, which is you're coming from a place of service. And I think that the media has portrayed police officers as coming from a place of force. So, when police officers show up, there's already that tension there. There's not the thought that they're there to help the situation or de-escalate the situation, but rather escalate the situation. And tensions are already high depending on what situation you're walking into. In your opinion, do you think you all should be the first ones to respond to mental health situations?
So I think it should be a dual response and an assessment, right? So every situation doesn't need a police hand, right? So there's sometimes that, we should respond because there's always a potential for violence in any situation like that. But once an assessment is made, then I think the people who are best qualified to deal with that situation should be able to take that over. So whether that be, if you have a behavioral crisis call, then that should be a dual call with a counselor or someone who's trained in the de-escalation and understanding, people who are going through crisis at that moment. In my agency, we have a great program where we've been working on de-escalating situations. We realize that we have all the time in the world, right? There's no need to rush in there. Especially with someone who's in crisis, there's no need to rush in there and get you to comply with me immediately, right? There's no need for that anymore. So we can wait and we can talk and we can let you vent and we can bring people in who can help you. So de-escalation in any situation like that, especially people dealing with behavioral crisis, is key to keeping everyone safe. And we've noticed that those use of forces, those arrests, those situations have gone down drastically because we've taken the time to just wait, just be patient. Let them vent. Let's figure out what's going on. Let's figure out what's the best course. Because sometimes handcuffs aren't the best recourse, right? Going to jail isn't the best recourse. Sometimes people just want to be heard. Sometimes people just want to vent. Sometimes people just need help. And like I said, we are a service industry. At the end of the day, we provide a service to the community, and you can't ever forget that. That's what we're here for. We're here to serve the community, protect and serve all day long, right? That's what we do. So if that's part of it, then we have to understand bringing that aspect of police forward. We have to be able to de-escalate situations. We have to be able to allow people to speak, allow people to vent, and then be able to provide them with the help that they need, not just at that moment, but that long-term help. Just like we provide victim assistance for victims who are, for people who are victims of crime. Like, so now we got you here. The state's attorneys have programs that can provide housing and counseling and stuff like that. We need to do that with people who are dealing with behavioral crisis and mental health issues. So not just that moment that we take you to the hospital and do an emergency petition, but what's the next step for that person then, and what's the next step after that, so we don't have to keep coming back to that same location for that same incident for that same person.
And I'm thinking perhaps we don't have the answer to this now, right? But one thing that's been interesting to me is, how do we build police trust in the Black community, right? For example, I tell you, man, like if I'm driving in a car and I see some flashing lights behind me, I just all of a sudden you lock up and you be like, okay, what did I do, right? What's wrong? And for some reason, when I talk to my other Black friends, there's a tension that comes around when police is around. With my white friends, it's almost like, oh, okay, well, it feels like, okay, well, they're here to save the day. Like that's superhero narrative, because more online work with them, you know? But in the Black community, it's a sense of distrust. It's like, wait, okay, what's happening? It's not me. And you look back at the tragedies with George Floyd. You look back at just some of the tragedies that happened in the country. There's no evidence in the media to us that, okay, well, we can actually start trusting police. And I mean, I wonder if, okay, well, do we need more Black officers so we could have Black officers try to create that trust? Like, I don't know, so it'd be interesting to know, like, your opinion on that, where to start.
So I've been Black a lot longer than I've been police. Right? So, and I understand that, and sometimes I still, I get pulled over, and they don't know I'm the police, right? So I still I still get a little bit apprehensive, but earlier when I said about complying, right? So and this happened with me and my wife, and I got a couple of nice cars and got some rims on the cars and got the system going. And, I might throw the Yankee fitted on backwards and just be bumping something going, doing what we do, right? It's no problem.
Right.
Get pulled over. I'm not worried about it, right? Because I didn't do anything wrong, right? So I'm going to comply. I put my hands out the window. Hey, listen, I'm an officer and I'm armed. Okay. So now that takes away that edge, right? And I think as the Black community, right? And this is what I will say, and I don't mean to offend anybody by it, but we have to stop making up excuses for other Black people's bad behavior. Right? If you did something, if you're riding dirty and you get pulled over,
right?
Why are you fussing and fighting? If you got no license and your taillight is busted and you got a gun in the car and you got weed, why were you speeding? Let's stop making up excuses for that, right? Let's call it what it is. That's be smart about the dumb shit that you're gonna do, right? And that wasn't smart. But if it's you and you're stopped by the police and you comply, then you shouldn't have a problem. And if you do have a problem, then there's recourses to deal with that. But you should not be afraid of being stopped by the police if you haven't done anything. And I know that's easier said, because, but 90% of the times when you hear the stories on the news, it's not the whole story. It's not everything that transpired for that stop, right? So, but they're preaching out the stuff that sells, but it's not the Black father who's coming home from work, It's not the Black dad who's coming home from basketball practice with his kids. You know what I'm saying? So we need to stop, as a Black community, we need to stop making up excuses for the dumb shit that we do. Right? So once we can do that and understand that, there shouldn't be any problems going forward. And you should never have to fear being stopped by the police or being talked to by the police, because if you did nothing wrong, I'm not worried about it. You can stop me all day long. It doesn't matter to me. I don't care. But the minute that you become disrespectful or we have an issue, then we're gonna deal with that issue accordingly. So when I get stopped, I got stopped in Virginia, and I gave the officer my ID, my police ID, and my driver's license. So he comes back to the car and he's like, "Why did you give me your ID?" I said, "For your safety and mine, so you know who you're dealing with, and so we don't have a problem later on." Right?
Yep.
Same way, I'm giving you this. I'm complying, so you understand, so we don't have a problem later on. And it is what it is. But that's something that's going to have to change over time. That comes, and a lot of that comes from within us as a culture of policing, right? Of understanding that every black guy driving a Mercedes isn't a criminal, right?
Mm-hmm.
But yet, every black guy driving Mercedes hat backwards don't need to be pulled out the car either. So it's
Yeah.
it's understanding of learning how to deal with people on our end, but then it's also people understanding how to deal with the police.
And you know what? So to add to that, I don't think that's not something that you're actually like taught with how to deal with police, because it's something that you just see on like television. You just see like someone in the comment was like, "Oh, so you mean First 48's not real?" This is the kind of stuff we're watching, man. We're watching cops, watching First 48, Live PD, and we see how criminals interact with police. And it's not
Right.
something that you taught with, okay, you comply, you stay calm, So I don't know. I mean, you bringing up some really good points to reflect on. It's like, well, perhaps how do we change that interaction so we could lower that anxiety level, right?
Well,
I,
Virginia right now is requiring all teenagers who are getting their license to take a class that that teaches you how to interact with the police when you're stopped.
Good. Yeah.
So that's a step on the community side, right? That's a step on the citizen side.
Yeah.
But also, like I said, it's twofold. We have to understand that, we have to approach situations a little bit differently. And I can't speak for every officer and every officer's fear level and what makes the hair in the back of an officer's head stand up in a situation. I don't know. I can't Monday morning quarterback a tactical situation, because unless you've been there, you really don't know. We all want to be the hero at the end of the day, but you really don't know what's going to happen unless you're in that situation, right? So, but that's something that we have to be taught. We, as police, that has to be trained into us and understand that, every situation doesn't require a heavy hand. And for the citizens, like, complying is 90% of the issue. Because if you don't comply, what are you hiding? What's going on here that you don't want me to know about? And it's got to be more than, I just don't like the police. Because I just don't like the police, it's going to get you in trouble because you were just doing stuff to break the law to bring the police to your attention. Right? So if you don't want to bring the police to your attention, don't break the law. But if you happen to get pulled over and you comply, 90% of that's out the window.
Yep.
And that's why I just said we have to stop making up excuses for bad behavior.
Yep. Agreed.
So we have a few minutes left, right? And there was a question in the comments earlier, and I want to get your take on it. It says, being a police officer, are you more strict with your kids? And, do you use your, the lessons that you learn on the job to, kind of teach them life lessons?
So if you ask my daughter, yeah, because I kept her from going to a lot of places because, then no, you can't go there. No, I think I was a lot more lenient on my kids because I worked so much and I didn't get all that time. Like, I missed a lot of stuff. I missed a lot of recitals. I missed a lot of plays. I missed a lot of games. I missed a lot of stuff, especially early on in my career, working and making money and just cases and just on the go constantly. Every unit that I've been in, I've been on the go, like, just nonstop. 16-hour days, and and I tried to pacify them with money and with gifts and to take up for the little bit of time that I got to spend with them. Now I'm older in my career. I've got 2 granddaughters, and I spend as much time with them as possible. My daughter's like, well, where was this at when I was growing up? But I was trying to make this life at this point. So my wife was really the disciplinarian for everything, and I was just like, okay. But so I have two boys and a girl, and as they got older, I would have those conversations with them. The same conversations basically we had about how to comply when you get stopped by the police. Because now my kids are teenagers and they're driving, and they're not just the cute little black kids anymore. They're young black men who the world may see as a threat. So I have to teach you how to maneuver in this world. So yeah, I used a lot of the stories that I seen and the stuff that I've gone through to try to steer them away. But like I said, I spent so much time away when they were younger that I was never really, I wasn't the bad guy. Mom was the bad guy.
We say in the comments, says a shout out to the wife. She held it down.
Yes, she did. She would and that's important too. That's extremely important for police officers. You asked earlier about dealing with the stresses. Your family life has to be really important. You have to be able to turn that off, and you have to have a partner that understands that can give you that few minutes when you come home and let you sit down and maybe take a shot and just get your mind right before you get yelled at for something that the kids did. And my wife was great. She allowed that. She kept them quiet when I needed to sleep, and when I was stressed, she'd be like, "Look, your dad's working a lot, so he's kind of stressful. Give him some space." So I was able to have that, and that's important. Family life is important. Divorce rate and suicide rate is extremely high in policing, and I just celebrated my 25th wedding anniversary, so I've been blessed. I got a soldier with me who just like, I think she'd have made a better cop than me.
So I know we're running short on time, and I'm going to try to put all 3 questions into one question, if that makes sense. This seems like a very thankless job, and I know you may or may not have gotten into it for that, but from what I've heard, recruiting numbers are down. I've got a buddy of mine who's been on the force for 10 years. He's leaving, and I heard officers are leaving in droves. Can you speak to that? What's behind that? I just, the amount of stress, the amount of or lack of gratitude for what you all go through on a daily basis. Why would anybody want to put themselves through that?
That's a great question, and it's like threefold. So you look at the political climate right now. Policing is ugly, right? It's never about protecting bad police, right? We don't want to protect bad police, but you have to remember policing in itself is ugly, right? That no one wants to be policed, and no people who inherently do bad things if they can get away with it, right? But when you get caught and you want to fight and you want to do those things, we have to figure out that happy medium. We have to be able to protect officers, good officers, when the situation looks bad or goes bad. This political climate doesn't allow you to do that, right? So if a situation looks bad, automatically it's bad for the officer. So why put myself in that position to stop the dude on the corner who, selling weed or selling dope or selling coke, whatever the case is, when the situation is going to go bad and no one's going to be able to protect me if it looks bad. Like I said, it's never about protecting bad police officers. Get them out, keep them moving, send them to jail. Who cares? But the perception of policing looks bad, and it's ugly, right? When you see the cop fighting with somebody in the corner, there's 3 or 4 police over there. Oh, they just beating his ass. We don't know what took place before that, right? But that perception to you, that looks ugly. There's a car stop and there's 4 police cars behind that car. That looks ugly. right? But we don't know what's going on in that situation. But when officers feel like they're not protected while doing their job, by doing what the community asks us to do, right? So you want us to go out there, you want us to be proactive, you want us to be aggressive, you want us to enforce these laws and do it correctly. It can be done correctly, but when it requires the ugliness of policing, you don't want to protect them. And that's this political climate that we live in today. So the guys who have who are in between that time, that 1 to 10 years, who can say, man, I'll go do something else. And that's what's happening. And then the guys who are coming on, like, why would I want to put myself through that? So guys like me who are here, who can retire, are sitting here like, why would I stick around and risk losing everything at the end of it? You know, so you're in that realm where you want to do your job, you want to do it correctly, but you want to be protected when it looks bad. Like I said, never protecting bad officers, but just protecting the good officers when the situation looks bad. And that's all anybody wants. You want to have that security to know that, hey, it got ugly. Because I mean that's just the nature of it. Everybody's not a good person. Some people want to hurt you. Some people want to do bad. And like I said, you don't want to know how the sausage is made, right? You just want to eat it, right? Mm-hmm. So sometimes when you get to see how the sausage is made, it's really ugly, right? But understand that when it gets like that, you got to be able to protect the guys if they did it correctly. If they didn't, then they deal with what comes down the pipe. But when they did it correctly and you still get jammed up and you're still sitting on a desk for a year, going through stuff with internal affairs and not knowing if you're going to have a job and, you know, and like I said, we got lives, right? You got mortgages, you got bills, you got kids. How can you get up every morning and be okay with doing that, knowing that, you know, you're walking that fine line? So that's where we're seeing the problem in recruiting and retaining. You know, everybody just wants to be protected, not the blue wall of silence, not like I said, not protecting bad officers, but just protected when the situation looks ugly.
We got a lot of people in the comments asking for a part 2. So
yeah, I was just about to say, man, you brought the insights. You know, we have people are saying that they want that part 2. They got more questions. You know, wow, right? I really liked there was so many golden nuggets that you laid out here tonight. A lot of the short phrasing that you made that was really impactful. Amazing. Absolutely amazing.
Thank you. I'd love to come back another time.
Oh, we appreciate that, Sergeant Davis. We definitely appreciate that. Do we have, you know, Chris? Do you want to wrap it up? I know we're tight on time. We're after the hour, so.
Yeah, absolutely. So thank everybody for tuning in. Sergeant Davis, again, thank you for taking the time out to come in and give us your point of view and educate us on a little bit of what happens behind the scenes. For our viewers, you know where to catch us next week, same time, same place. Check us out. Breathe easy. Y'all be great.
Bye. Thanks, guys.
Take it easy.